number 4.
Good afternoon. My name is Leima. Welcome to this session. My name is Leima. I'm the Director of Media Innovation at the R&W Media. I'm also the coordinator for the IGF Dynamic Coalition on Sustainability of Journalism and News Media. Here is my colleague Insaf.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session. My name is Insaf Ben Nassar. I'm the program lead at R&W Media. Thank you.
Here is today's agenda. I will do a brief introduction of R&W Media, and then we will have 2 guest speakers, and followed by AI user stories from our partners from Global South. And besides, we are going to also showcase the ethical AI checklist and facilitate a fishbowl exercise. So, if you can go to the next slide. So R&W Media is an international media development organization based in Haarlem, the Netherlands, dedicated to harness the power of independent digital media to uphold human rights and advance the public good. Our vision is open society powered by digital media, and our mission is that we support public interest digital media to champion human rights and advance the public good. So we work in more than 40 countries across Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, West and East Africa, East Asia, and Central and South America. So R&W Media, we also have a training center called RNTC. It was set up in 1968. So in the past 57 years, we have provided journalism and also media trainings to over 10,000 journalists, media makers, and also NGO professionals from over 110 countries. So what do we do? So we do 3 things. We co-create innovative and local relevant digital media learning solutions that drive reach and engagement and impact. We facilitate strategic media coalition, partnership, and movement building. We conduct evidence-based advocacy for sustainability, sustainable media funding, and also tech platform accountability. So basically, we are focused on 2 themes, media variability and information integrity. For the media variability, we support public interest media to deploy ethical digital transformation, develop innovative business model, provide professional capacity building, and facilitate media coalition partnership building, so we can ensure public interest media in Global South, they can achieve the financial independence and also editorial freedom. So for information integrity, we address the growing challenge of information disorder by rebuilding the public confidence in information ecosystem. Our initiative included digital inclusion and a universal connectivity, tackling misinformation, supporting local journalism to amplify truth in community, and safeguarding digital safety and well-being. We're also working on 3 cross-cutting themes, including ethical technology and AI deployment, democratic discourse on gender, and also promoting inclusive migration narrative. So as I introduced, R&W Media, we are a service provider. We provide 9 different types of service to UN agency, to global and local governmental and non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, universities. So we have over 50 solutions supported by our ISO 9001 certification across ethical AI and emerging technology, digital safety and accessibility, journalism, digital media, and so on. And there is a table at the entrance, and you can find our flyers of our solution portfolio if you want to have a look. So what is our impact? So together with our partners, we reach 500 million people every year, and mainly young people from Global South. And we have almost 350 million social media reach in 2024. And 91% of audience report knowledge and attitude change. And 79% audience report significant behavior change. And as I said, we have provided journalism and media trainings to over 10,000 alumni globally. And we have 91% of partner satisfaction rate. And also 94% of our alumni reported a positive career change. So I think there is one thing I want to mention is in the past 3 or 4 years, together with our partners, we successfully advocate for Meta to change their content advertising and also moderation policy. Last but not least, I would like to present you an international initiative from us called Harlem Declaration. You can find a copy also at the entrance on that table. So it is an international collective commitment to promote ethical AI in digital media and champion AI for advancing inclusive, safe, and reliable digital space. It was born in the city of Haarlem, a city known for the digital innovation in the Netherlands. And it was created with together eight public interest media from Global South, and also experts from 34 countries. It outlined 6 ethical values and principles, and also 6 tangible actions, including an ethical AI checklist. So this checklist will be the center for today. So it was endorsed by 16 media outlets, CSOs, and academic organizations. I would like to encourage you guys to talk to us, and if you want to join in this international commitment, international movement, please sign your name and reach out to us. Okay. So as an organization based in the Netherlands, it would be nice to get to know what's the vision and the positioning of the Dutch government on information integrity, digital governance, and AI. It is my honor to present our first guest speaker, Mr. Ernst Norman, the Ambassador for Cyber Affairs from the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So Mr. Ernst, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lei, and it's always a pleasure to be together with the RNW Media in an event. And I really can recommend also, if you have ever a chance to be in Haarlem or the Netherlands, to go and visit their offices. It's in a beautiful building, which was before a prison building, but right now a center with lots of activity and startups, and of course RNW Media. So please take the opportunity if you have a chance to visit them. Now on the information integrity, for us, information integrity online is an essential for promoting enjoyment of freedom of expression, which includes the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas. This is why we started in 2023 with the Global Declaration on Information Integrity together with Canada, which was signed by 36 countries. With this approach, we try to formulate a positive agenda on information online, rather than just talk about banning or debunking disinformation. Now, what do we see as the main elements for information integrity? First of all, human rights should be at the core of your policy on this. You must uphold the freedom of expression, opinion, and access to information as fundamental rights. You must ensure measures to protect information integrity, which comply with international human rights laws, and especially with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And for that you have to have also legal and regulatory measures in place. You have to implement appropriate laws and platform governance aligned with privacy and human rights obligations. And at the same time, you have to avoid restrictive laws that infringe on digital freedoms. I think the DSA Act from the European Union is an excellent example on how the EU tries to cope to do this. And on AI, it's important to manage emerging technologies responsibly and monitor and regulate generative AI and emerging tech through multi-stakeholder dialogue. And you have to ensure any responses are appropriate, proportionate to risk, and uphold international law. And again, I mentioned the EU with the EU AI Act as an example, how we have tried to do this. Indeed, also through a multi-stakeholder approach, trying to hear to all the insights and voices from the different partners in the digital community. An important part further is to promote diversity and media pluralism. And we have to support independent, pluralistic media and diverse content, including local languages and cultures. I think local languages to promote that is also an extremely important part, will be in the WSIS discussion. We have to safeguard journalism and access to credible information to counter disinformation. Another point is to strengthen digital and media literacy. And I think this is also where RNW Media comes in with their experience in this field. We have to invest in civic education to empower individuals to critically assess online content. And we have to build society resilience against misinformation and online harms. And further, we have to protect vulnerable and targeted groups. Unfortunately, very relevant today, this subject. We have to address disinformation that targets women, the LGBTI groups, individuals, persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and other marginalized groups. And further, we have to embrace a multi-stakeholder approach. We have to collaborate with governments, tech companies, civil society, academics, and experts. I always say multi-stakeholder approach is not a religion. It is there because we believe in it, because it created the internet as it is today, and will further the resilience of the internet and the plural approach of the internet. And we have to share knowledge and craft better informed responses to information threats. And we have to foster global cooperation. We have to promote digital inclusion and freedom through partnerships and global fora like the Forum on Information and Democracy. And we have to encourage cross-border knowledge, sharing and joint actions. Another important point is to ensure algorithmic transparency and accountability. We have to disclose how the algorithms rank, recommend and suppress content in user-friendly language. We have to implement oversight mechanisms to ensure responsible algorithm use. We have learned a hard lesson in the Netherlands with the social security program, which harmed large groups in society. That's why we created an algorithm registry, which also includes a human rights assessment for new algorithms being introduced by the governments. And it's now really almost close to 1,000 algorithms have been registered, and we also encourage now the private sector to register their algorithms. So I think it's a strong example how we work together within the government, but also with the private sector, to be transparent on the use of algorithms. And we have to further to safeguard political and electoral integrity. Last year was the year with the most elections in history. And a lot of discussion was, of course, on the use of AI and influence the elections. So we have to develop clear policies for political and issue-based ads to protect democratic processes. And we have to support transparency in content moderation and appeal mechanisms. And final point I would like to make is to promote trust and integrity. We have to fight monetization of disinformation. We have to ensure content governance is ethical and transparent. And we have to partner with academia and civil society to identify trustworthy sources and create tools for users. As I said before, the Netherlands sees the European Digital Services Act as an important step in taking action in order to achieve information integrity and addressing harmful content online, while protecting freedom of expression. And we are now working with the Freedom Online Coalition, its 41 members and the advisory network, and the OECD to develop this work on information integrity further. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Ernst. Okay, and we should have another speaker from GFMD, but Laura is not here yet, so we will skip this part. But I will encourage you guys to check the GFMD website, the Global Forum for Media Development. They are doing amazing work. So let's move on. We already heard about the story from the Netherlands, and let's switch our focus to more countries from Global South. So Insaf, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We were supposed to have three partners, but unfortunately, one of our partner will not be able to make it due to the current crisis that is happening in the Middle East. He's literally stuck at an airport, so we're very pleased to have two partners of us with us, one in person and the other one online. I'm pleased to introduce Taysir Matlouti, the EU Advocacy Officer at Hamla, the Arab Center for the Advancement of Social Media. Hamla is a leading nonprofit organization advocating for Palestinian digital rights and working to create a safe, fair, and free digital space. So, welcome, Taysir. And online, we have with us, joining us, Sanskriti, the president of Juva, a youth-led organization from Nepal that empowers young people to lead on gender equality, SRHR, and civic engagement. I would like to double-check with the technicians if our online participants also have access to the mic to participate, to make that possible for us. Thank you so much. I will start with Taysir. Could you please share a little bit more about the very important and wonderful work, amazing work that Hamla is doing, and more about the organization and the work indeed?
Yes, thank you very much. As you already said, Hamle is a Palestinian digital rights organization. We are based in Palestine, in Israel, but also in different regions in Europe and in the United States. One of the most important works we're doing is platforms accountability, especially in conflict-affected settings, and how when a conflict happens now, war is not only offline but online as well. So we've been working mostly on content moderation issues, especially after October 7th, how specific platforms such as Meta have been modifying their internal policies and have been taking down many content of Palestinian content creators, but also journalists. And we've been advocating for the fact that those accounts being taken down, the content being censored, is obviously against freedom of opinion and expression, but also international humanitarian law and international human rights law. So we've been also working on the use of AI in digital warfares, how generative AI can lead to digital dehumanizations, especially the dehumanization of the Palestinian people, and how AI also can be used as a weapon of war, especially when it comes to identification tools that are being used by different armies to target potential people within the Gaza Strip.
Thank you very much. And online, Sanskriti Pandai, can you... yeah, thank you very much. Sanskriti, would you like to please introduce the work that you're doing?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sanskriti Pandey. I'm from Yuva. So we are an organization that is completely youth-run and youth-led. So Yuva is based in Nepal. So our three thematic core areas are active citizenship. That basically means we are connecting young people to their civil rights and making them know their rights and everything. Then the second theme we have is sexual and reproductive health and rights. And the third theme we have is research unit that basically supports these two thematic cores areas that we are focusing on. So we have our advocacy that is very evidence-based, and so that is the work we do, and we focus on youth empowerment.
Thank you very much, Sanskriti. And do you use AI tools in the work related to digital media?
Yeah. So we have a small team in our group. So there's not many communication team who can have a dedicated, Photoshop, illustrators. So we do use AI, but just as a tool. We don't completely rely on it because we do work on sensitive issues, sensitive topics. We're trying to bust myths about abortion, sexual and reproductive health and rights, which is quite taboo in Nepal. So we are using AI just as a tool. We use like ChatGPT, we use Canva, which is like Canva AI tools, and then we use Grammarly for that. Yeah.
And Hamna, how are you using AI tools in the work?
Yes, so at Hamle, when we talk about ethical AI, and especially in our context of conflict-affected setting, the main challenge we face with generative AI are algorithmic biases, because most AI tools that we are currently using are being developed within the northern hemisphere and are not understanding and grasping all the issues we're facing within our context, but also all the cultural aspects and different languages. So at Hamle, we've been working on our own AI models that are designed to classify hate speech and violence on social media platforms and different chat platforms in 2 different languages, Hebrew and Arabic. And those models are really unique because they are built on words, terms, definitions, and data labeling that reflect the specific region we live in and countries we work on. So narratives are contextualized and identities are also defined within their intersectionality, rather than relying on generic or externally imposed standards. So we are really using ethical AI as a localized approach, which is very crucial for creating more inclusive AI systems that truly understand the nuances of global majority communities, especially in areas where big tech's content moderation tools unfortunately often fail.
So you do have discussions in your organization about the use and how to use AI ethically and mindfully in the work that you're doing?
Yes, we do. And we don't do it only under the umbrella of freedom of opinion and expression. We also do it around the environmental impact of AI. So when we build our own tools, especially these AI models for content moderation issues, we've been focusing on what we call weak AI systems that are LLMs, but that are not obviously very big processors, which means that although the training part of it could lead to a lot of water consumption, we also take into account the fact that when we use this AI tool now, obviously it's way less than a tool such as ChatGPT or bigger LLMs that we're currently using in our daily lives. But also we take the aspect of freedom of expression and opinion and how it is important, although as a Palestinian organization, to take into account all the disparities and the differences within the Hebrew language to grasp all the content that could be considered as harmful and hateful in Hebrew, but also in Arabic. So we're also trying to have this balance, focusing on both sides of the war and how harmful content could come from both parts. Obviously, we also take into account the anonymity of the content we're using, so we're not trying to do profiling, or we're not trying to identify the sources. We're mostly using the data as anonymized tools, and we don't at all share the information around sources. And obviously, the last part is that our tool is not open source, but we would like to have it open source later on, obviously because we want other NGOs, other contexts being able to use the same systems within their own context, within their own languages and issues.
Thank you very much. And Sanskriti, do you have deliberations in your organization about how to use AI more ethically in the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So we have quite long discussions about it because it's a new tool for us and everyone has been using it quite frequently in the individual level, organizational level. So we have had this conversation multiple times on how we should do it ethically, and especially when we are working with so many stakeholders, the data, especially working around sexual and reproductive health and rights, we have to be very mindful of how and where we are using the data. We are not exposing the names. So we have had that conversation, and I agree with the previous speaker, like the water use and everything. Like even globally speaking, it is estimated like in 2027 we will be using 4.2 to 6 trillion, right? Yeah, liters of water, which is huge. So the environmental impact is really huge. So we are trying to make it as ethical as possible. There's always a human touch. There's always biases, and especially when we as an organization are trying to deal with biases, stereotypes, and if we are using AI completely and depending on it without our own human touch, it makes it quite difficult to do the work we're doing very ethically because of the language they have used, because of how they've presented, what kind of views are being like narrated in like the general source, right? A lot of things are generalized. So we have this conversation when we should use it. When because I feel like AI is like the new way of life. So it's like if we don't use it, there's a lot of resource constraints as a small NGO. So we are somehow forced to use AI, but if we don't, like, it's hard to maintain, right? But we do like maintain the authenticity. We label it and be like, this is AI generated, this is where we took our source from. Even if we are getting any information from our AI, we double check it because we don't want to spread any misinformation. And then the content guidelines. So we don't have a very proper guideline, but we have vetted our like communication team to be very mindful. However, it's quite tricky in UR because not just the communication team, we have our local youth partners as well, youth champions, which are in different parts of Nepal. So they all have social media users to promote their content, their work they have been doing in their own places, and we give them complete control over how, like, what they want to post, what they want to promote. We look at it, but like they have that autonomy of posting their work in however way they like. So it's very hard to internally control everything. So that has been quite challenging, but the discussions are obviously there, but we don't have a framework yet, like what should be done or what we shouldn't do. But video generation from AI is non-negotiable for us because we know how much damage it causes to the environment. But using it when we are having blocks and then AI like Grammarly and then ChatGPT is like quite oftenly used. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of challenges indeed. What kind of support would help you, your organization, implement it in in an ethical way? Sorry, for you,
Yeah.
Sanskrit.
Yeah, so I think it would really help if we have literacy trainings and, like we said, if there are better alternatives, right? So we would be, it would be very helpful if we are aware of it. Like if there is the same thing, like we can also keep prompt and like have the idea generation. But if there is a better like alternative to ChatGPT, we would love to know. And then toolkits like the what should be done, what is ethical, which is not good. We may not know what we're doing is like causing harm. So if we had that toolkit, we can also transfer it to the young champions we are like giving, because we often have like orientations for them, how to make content and everything. So we can also integrate how they should be using it ethically, like the AI ethically. We cannot control an individual like act, but what we can provide is like these trainings, these guidelines, and then have our communication team do their best to moderate it. So I think those are the things that would really help. And also when we are doing art competitions, it was very hard because digital art also we need to accept, and then which is very like if we just don't review digital art, it's unfair for the participant who have put so much time and effort. But right now we don't know whether it's AI generated or not, right? So it also becomes tricky at those times. So if we had a way to verify, like, what is AI generated, which is like authentic, so that would also help a lot. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And for Hamla.
So when it comes to Hamle, we are taking the ethics by design strategy. So we really want AI to be designed ethically from the beginning, and we don't want regulations either at the local, regional, or international levels to only try to regulate the risks that are already taking place with AI. So according to us, what is important is obviously investments around AI literacy, but also AI within the education. We need more people being trained and educated in the use of AI within global majority countries. And we need people who kind of take a sort of a very holistic approach when it comes to AI to decrease as much as possible algorithmic biases. So we need people who understand the different contexts. We need AI tools that take into account the small languages without prioritizing northern hemispheres languages. We also consider that it's important to push for more AI models and LLMs being developed within the global majority countries and by people who understand their own context and communities. Obviously, we do consider that AI could have a huge potential and could maximize the benefits for human rights principles, but at the same moment, if we produce what we already have, we might face some issues in the next years as well. So global majority countries should take also the lead when it comes to AI projects and implementation.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if that was an AI-generated baby sound, but because I don't see a child, but I can definitely hear it. Oh, yes, there. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and the work and the goals that you have when it comes to the use of AI in an ethical way. I was looking in the audience. If Laura was already amongst us, I would like to invite you to the stage. Thank you very much. No? And if we can have access to the PowerPoint, again, showing it in the background. Yes. Thank you. Laura, the floor is yours.
Well, I wanted to first introduce, for those who don't know GFMD, we are a network of more than 200 organizations working to support journalism, media development organizations too. RNW Media is one of our members. And we are working together to protect and promote media freedom and support journalism worldwide. So we do this through collaboration, knowledge exchange, and coalition building, both with our members, also other partners. I'm happy to see also Hamlet here. We've worked with them a lot on EU media advocacy. We have also this informal coalition. And what we want to make sure is that our community is represented and it's actively engaging into these key policy discussions on digital governance, for example. So we want to bring their knowledge, expertise, and recommendations, especially because policies on social media or AI are developed and deployed in ways that uphold media, like we want them to uphold media freedom, editorial independence, and human rights, because otherwise our voices are not in those discussions. As I was saying, one of these examples is, for example, the EU Media Advocacy Group. We work on the EU Digital Services Act, also the AI Act a bit, and also the European Media Freedom Act. which includes also protections online for media journalism and also against surveillance. We're also, and in more of a global level, we're engaging with the UN in the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, which also has a section on AI, and now, for example, on the WSIS Plus 20 review. In the context also of the IGF, I think it's very important to mention that we are the Secretariat. Also, Lei is one of the co-coordinators, newly elected co-coordinators of the Dynamic Coalition on the Sustainability of News, the Dynamic Coalition on the Sustainability of News, Media and Journalism. We've just launched a report. I think we have the QR code, or if not, we can share it afterwards, on how AI also affects to the sustainability of journalists. And there's a lot of case studies there, so I really would like to encourage you to read it. It's here. We have the printed copy. I was just in the session presenting also this. We have also Shuravi. And all these activities, so what we really want there is to strengthen this presence of the journalist voices in these digital governance discussions, because this is not a niche issue. It is essential for the future of democracy, for the access to information, freedom of expression, and inclusivity and accessibility. And in the meantime also, we know that rising expense, and I think it was also, it's mentioned in the report, but it was also being mentioned there, the rising expenses of the cloud computing, AI tools, big data infrastructure are threatening the future of the public interest journalism, and also the impact that can have when at the moment when our democratic future is at risk. So among these also collaboration efforts on shaping these policies, we have also practical alternatives. We just launched the Journalism Cloud Alliance, which is a joint initiative with OCCRP and other 33 members that through collaboration, collective action, and via strategic partnerships aims to make these services, these AI tools, this cloud-based infrastructure and services more accessible, secure, affordable, and sustainable for the newsrooms worldwide. So that would be a bit of overlooked of our work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And unfortunately, this session is overlapping with another session. That's why the Dutch Cyber Affairs Ambassador already left. But he is going to stay here for several days. And so if you, definitely you can meet him and reach out to him if you have any questions. So I will say, let's move on. And I prefer to leave the last 17 minutes to my colleague Surabi, who will share our ethical AI checklist. And also, we really want to in working with you on this ethical AI checklist. Yeah, Surabi.
Yes, thank you, Lei, and apologies for not being here earlier. I was, as Laura mentioned, in a session with her, which was also overlapping. But yeah, I'm sure my colleagues have already shared a bit about the Haarlem Declaration, and you can find a copy of it at the back table, and you can have the QR code to actually look at the whole of the document. But I wanted to talk a bit about our approach to AI as RNW Media, where we center people over technology and people over AI, and hence we call it the AI-supported approach. And I'll also mention a bit, as highlighted by our partner organizations, the need for an ethical AI checklist, a reflection tool that gives you a pathway of what happens next after you have this document with guiding principles and values. So if we can move to the next slide. Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, we are interested in more assisting people with AI technology rather than replacing people with AI. And of course, the job loss and the replacement of roles in the future, not so future, by AI is a pressing concern. But as much as it's important, I think it's very relevant to also understand the importance of AI, of human oversight and human agency, especially when it comes to newsrooms and media organizations and journalists, and how important it is to have human agency and human element in everything we do along the workflow of media work. And hence, it's very important for us that we pay attention to the assistance part and also support part rather than automation. So maybe I can, yeah, sorry. Yeah, and I wanted to take you through also, I mean, ChatGPT came around in 2023, so it's also been a big learning exercise for us internally as an organization on what it has meant to use AI tools. And this provides a bit of a glimpse of what we have been doing over the last 2 years in terms as a media development organization, internal learning and processes, and creating our own repository of understanding on what these AI tools actually mean in practice. And this has come in many different forms, both internally through the lens of actually using and experimenting some of these AI tools to understand how they work in practice, what are their limitations, how well do they integrate in our current workflows, but also developing our own understanding collectively about different facets of AI. So part of it is learning about what actually is artificial intelligence, what is algorithms, what is this whole new jargon of terminology that's become quite normalized now, but also what are the ethical and problematic implications of using these tools if we leave human oversight or agency outside of the workflow dependent on AI. We have also been talking to our partner organizations around the world, especially in global majority, global south countries, where we work with a lot of independent media, public interest media outlets, with civil society organizations like you heard from Nepal, but also digital rights organizations like Hamle, where we are talking to them about how they're using AI, and not just using, but also how are they thinking about the ethical implications of using AI tools, what are their concerns and apprehensions about these tools, as well as how do they envision we can provide and offer more support. And part of the user stories is documented in the report that Laura referred to, where several partner organizations have highlighted the importance of talking about the ethical attributes of using AI tools. And the learning continues, of course, so this is not an exhaustive list, but this is just to indicate that we are very interested in continuing our learning as an organization, but also with our partners, but also with various different stakeholders to develop solutions. So for instance, looking at AI in journalism, but also taking the next step in terms of we have a blueprint in terms of our guiding principles, but then how do we implement them in practice? And I think both Tessir and Sanskriti highlighted that in their presentations. So Harlem Declaration, as I mentioned, is a blueprint for us in terms of our ethical guidelines that we would like to commit to in practice. And these are the 6 guiding principles for us. So they range from ethical data practices, securing and restoring information integrity, understanding explainability of AI tools, but also looking at the broader environmental implications, which I think often is left outside of the ethical considerations, but is becoming fast an important element as we read more about the data centers, but also some incredible investigative journalism being done on how these data centers are being built in communities that are already impoverished and marginalized around the world. As I mentioned, we have this Harlem Declaration, so the question was, what next? How do we really think about now translating these principles in practice? And I think an important element for us was to understand what is it that we would like people to do with an ethical AI checklist. Now, we have all used checklists in different ways. They can be boring, they can be tiring, they can feel unnecessary and burdensome. So that's an important attribute of how do we also prevent checklist fatigue, and I'll come back to that in a bit. But really the key elements we want to look at are understanding what are the ethical implications, having some real practical things to look at as we work through our everyday tasks with media organizations, having reflection points to discuss and deliberate over these aspects, and then also document some of these challenges and continuing conversations, because these are often ethical dilemmas that we will not resolve in one go. So how do we keep coming back to them, and how do we evolve with these discussions over time with our teams as well as at individual level? And I have some examples here, and I will skip because I do want to continue to the guiding questions, and I would love to hear from the audience here. But this is just some examples in terms of how could you implement something like a toolkit like this in, let's say, a local newsroom in India that's trying to do news or storytelling in local languages. And a part of it, this is to highlight that this needs to begin from the very beginning, right? So it's not when you are already doing content production that you start thinking of AI, but you start thinking about AI tools at the very beginning of the planning and setup stage. And this includes, for example, understanding what AI tools to use. And that itself can be several days of deliberation, but that brings forward questions of who is building these tools, where's the funding for these tools coming about, what are the ideologies that are shaping the development of these tools, and what are the financial attributes, aspects of pushing these tools into the market? How do we understand the labor rights issues behind development of these tools, as Karen Howe in her latest book on Empire of AI calls it disaster capitalism? How do we really look at all of these attributes to make the decision whether the tool that we're even planning to use is ethical or responsible in its development? And these are quite big questions, and we often may not have the time and resources enough to actually discuss these questions in detail. But this is just to guide that the idea of checklist is not just to check off certain things and then move on, but really sit with some of these discussions and reflections and think about, are we making the most responsible decisions as media organizations or as civil society organizations when we are trying to use these tools? Because we also work with media makers who are content creators online, and they're on Instagram and TikTok. Another example could be, how do we understand the production of content for social media channels? How do we look at understanding both publishing aspect but also production aspects? Are we talking about transparency with our audiences in terms of an AI-generated content? I think Sanskriti mentioned in her presentation that it's often hard for young people to tell whether a content piece is AI-generated or not. Can we bring in that ethical AI checklist framework to understand how transparent can we be to our audience? Can we claim that certain part of this was generated through AI? How much transparency is needed? And what happens after that transparency is accorded to the audience, right? So because they know that it's AI generated, does it help them to actually consume that information more meaningfully? Does it help them to make the right decisions around whether the information is accurate, reliable, fact-based? So I think a lot of those layers and nuances need to be delved into when we are thinking about this checklist as well. Sorry, I'm not. Yeah. So some of the challenges, and this slide is cut off for some reason, but okay, this works. So as I mentioned, some of the challenges that come about if you are implementing a checklist like this, as I mentioned, checklist fatigue. I think we've all been through this in our own organizations. There are a lot of, they might be considered a bureaucratic hurdle. You might just want to move past it in a rush manner. So how do we address that? Also thinking about the resource constraints. We work with a lot of media organizations who are working under really narrow timelines, very restrictive funding and restrictive settings. Do they have the time to really think through and implement this checklist in the first place? The nature of evolving AI technology. I mean, we all know that AI is evolving exponentially, and so a checklist really needs to be considered as a living document. It cannot be a static thing that we plan to use even 2 months from now, for instance. So these are some of the challenges I think that we will need to keep coming back to, and with our organizations internally think about how do we address them to really make sense of and ensure that we are using this checklist in the best way possible. So we wanted to do a fishbowl activity, but since we are running out of time, we had some guiding questions, and this is something that we would like to open the floor to the audience. and think about in your own work, if you are implementing a checklist, whether it may be related to AI or another, what have been some of your own learnings around it? How do you ensure that there's a buy-in from the organization to use a checklist like this? Do you use certain kind of incentives? Are you using certain processes to document whether this checklist is being used efficiently? Is it really effective for people and your colleagues in the organizations you work in? And yeah, these are some guiding questions, but if something else comes to mind, I think this is really the point we would like to hear from you as well. So I don't know if there are any quick reflections or ideas or thoughts. How do you like the idea of another checklist?
Yeah, sometimes I feel that having a checklist. Sometimes people maybe they are too busy on their daily work. They actually will not use it. But some checklists can be really, 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 how to say that, is starting from something really small, right? I remember I learned from somebody that you need to stop saying thank you to ChatGPT. A lot of people still saying thank you to ChatGPT. Okay, I'm looking at the audience, so if there is no one, yeah.
Maybe if I could, not to put you on spot test here, but if you have any reflections on how do you create a buy-in within the organization to use a checklist like this?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you raised an important point when you said that it could be seen as a very bureaucratic process. So it's mostly around how we can make it, first of all, compatible with the capacity that we have within the organization, but also being also included within our reporting and our workload. So it's not something that we just do in addition to our work, but is really part of the process. But obviously, I think that everyone needs to be included within the process. So obviously, that's something difficult to put into place. But what I learned when it comes to ethical AI and the use of AI is that sometimes we have a very, very narrow idea of how we can use it and how we use it personally. But you need conversations. You need to be able to sit with your colleagues, with other organizations, with different stakeholders to really take into account and understand how AI can be implemented and used, and also obviously the risks that could evolve from the beginning to the moment it's implemented. And also, as you said, this is a process that should be always, I mean, it's not something that you finish. That's always a process that we have to do every couple of months, maybe every year, because the risks of AI are changing. But that's a huge issue. How can we take that into account within our work without putting too much burden, especially when it comes to global majority local organizations, we don't have that much capacity. How you just reorganize the workforce that you have as well. Those are really important questions. Otherwise, this will be expelled like another bureaucratic process to be done.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tessie, for that. And we have a question, I think, from our online audience.
Do we have a question?
Any reflections from our online audience at this point? No? Okay. So yeah, I think we're running out. We just have a minute, or not even a minute. I think we have 10 seconds, so I will move on. But this is just to say that if you would like to keep in touch with us and think along with us on how do we co-create and implement this checklist tool, please get in touch with us. Our business cards are also at the back table. Also, do check out the Harlem Declaration. Read through it and consider endorsing it, especially if you're a media organization or you work with media outlets who are using AI in their own work. But I think that's a wrap from us then. And thank you so much for joining us. And if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.